Thanks for joining us today. My name is Elizabeth Williams. I'm a principal in the HR Solutions group here at Rehmann. And today we are going to talk about 5 ways managers are the answer to employee engagement. Now, we've all heard the terms quiet quitting, quiet firing, and the great resignation, right? Well, according to Gallup, 70% of an employee's engagement sits in the hands of the manager. It's literally employee engagement is up to the manager. Now, managers are our leaders in an organization, but they're also employees who need support and guidance. In today's webinar, you'll learn 5 things that managers can do to not only increase employee engagement, but reduce turnover. We'll also share additional ways managers can support team members. Today's webinar will be eligible for SHRM and HRCI credits for those who hold those HR certifications. And feel free to type any questions in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer them during today's call. And if we aren't able to address them all, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterward. Well, I'm excited to introduce today's presenter, Cheryl Cooch, who's a senior HR consultant with Rehmann. Cheryl's mission is simple: provide leaders and organizations with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration to positively impact lives of people who work with them, and the world becomes a better place for all. She's passionate about helping companies drive employee engagement and development and providing solutions to overcome any leadership development challenge. Cheryl, thank you for being here today to share your stories and impart your wisdom of how to create an engaging environment, starting with a concentrated focus on managers.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm going to go ahead and share a presentation for everybody, and I hope it's what everybody can see on the screen now. So welcome, everybody. Boy, it's a great day, isn't it, to be talking about employee engagement. As I look out the window, it's nice and sunny and bright. It gets us energized to talk about such an important topic. And as Elizabeth says, I work with Elizabeth at Rehmann, and what I do is I help organizations, teams, leaders, groups. I do 2 things, really: identify and solve employee engagement, leadership, and management development challenges and problems, and influence those. I also spend a good amount of time in the classroom as well, helping our managers figure out how to create engaging environments where employees can thrive and do well. I'm also a Gallup partner, so I spend time with Gallup, and I use their research, their tools, and their methods in the work that I do. And you're going to see a good amount of data today, most of which comes from Gallup. So if there are data points that interest you, you'd be able to see them directly from Gallup. And before I get into the content today, what you came for, I really want to take a minute and truly and sincerely say thank you for everybody who's joined the presentation today, because if you're joining the presentation, that means that you truly do care about making your workplace and the people around you have a great experience at work and really changing their lives. And namely, if you're in this presentation, you're probably even interested in making sure your managers have everything that they need. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit about how our managers really impact engagement. So what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to be covering 4 quick things in the next 35 minutes or so. We're going to take a quick review of the state of engagement today and what's happening in the world around us. Now, if you joined us in December for the December webinar, we're going to be recapping briefly a few of the things we talked about at that time. And then we're going to jump right into the managers. We're going to share what the state of our managers are today. What are the kinds of things they might be struggling with and the kinds of support that they might need from you to better engage folks, and then right into 5 things, 5 ways that managers, with your support, of course, can increase engagement in the organizations and how we can best support them. So let's get started. That's what you're here to do. We always start everything with a definition of engagement, because if we're talking about how managers affect engagement, what is engagement? Let's get on the same page. So engagement is not satisfaction or happiness, although, I could probably argue well enough that engaged employees oftentimes are happy and oftentimes are satisfied. We're talking about a state of mind here. We're talking about a feeling. we're talking about the way people feel about what's happening around them in the workplace. We're talking about passion, commitment, enthusiasm, being in the zone. I like to say that's an engaged employee. And when they're engaged, great things happen around them. Now, some of you on this call I know might think that engagement is a characteristic. It's not. We're not born with it. We're not born engaged or not engaged. It's something that we develop at work. That's how we're defining engagement. And according to Gallup, there's actually 3 categories of engagement. There are employees who are engaged. You see that in the first column there. They're the passionate, connected ones I just described. But not all employees are engaged. Some are considered not engaged. These are our quiet quitters, right? They're coming to work, maybe putting in the time, maybe not with the energy, maybe not with the enthusiasm as the engaged folks. And then the third category are actively disengaged employees. These are the folks, I like to call them sometimes our grumpies, right? They come to work and they like to spend their time acting out their disengagement. And they may do that in a very loud way, like complaining. We might see that with our nonverbals, a lot of sighing, a lot of eye rolling. They might also do that in a very quiet way. They might do that by undermining some of our other employees. So 3 categories. All of us fit into one of these categories. Hopefully everybody on this call, right, is in that engaged category. I'm hopeful. But I want to give you a second to think about the team that you work on, the company that you might lead, or the group that you might work with. And I'm going to give you just a second to think about what percentage of employees in your organization would you think are considered engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged? And I'd ask you to write that down on a scrap paper right in front of you. I'm not going to ask you for it or anything like that. I'm just going to give you a second to really think about where your organization is. And while you do that, I'm going to take a drink. I'm going to give you just a second to do that. Do you have your numbers? I'm going to give you something to compare them to. So according to Gallup, currently, right now, 32% of our workforce is considered engaged, 52% is considered not engaged, and 16% are considered actively disengaged. How do those compare to your numbers? Were you right there? Was yours higher than average? Is yours lower than average? Well, a couple of things about these numbers as well. Number one, we have seen a steady decline in engagement since the middle of 2020, where we hit a high of about 38, 39 for about 5 minutes. It was just a short blip, and then down it came. It hovered around 36 for a while, and then we've seen it come down to 30, 32%. The next thing I want to point out is if you look at these data, it might be very concerning to you that about 70% of our workforce is not in the engaged category. And this could be a big problem, not just because we love to be around engaged people, right? And we love the feeling of it, but there's a business implication to this as well. So as engagement goes up, so goes the favor of business metrics, these of which are probably very important to you. So the higher the level of engaged employees, the more favorable these business metrics are. The lower the percentage of engaged employees, the lower these business metrics are. So it's very important to our business. And then we're also dealing with a lot of sort of worldwide and countrywide phenomenon as well. Some of our workforce challenges that we're experiencing that we dug down deep into in December are the labor shortage. We're still experiencing a labor shortage. We still have nearly 2 times the number of openings for the job seekers that are looking, and the Great Resignation, still alive and well, right? We're still experiencing some of these things as well. And still 50% of our workforce, that's 50% of your workforce, is still looking for other work, watching postings, taking the call from those recruiters. We got the trend down of employee engagement as well. We've got this looming recession. And in some industries, they're feeling the pain of a recession already with a lot of layoffs being announced. And then we're still trying to figure out this hybrid, in-person, not in-person work arrangements. And all of these create all kinds of complexities for both business owners and managers. And navigating around these well is where the success comes from in employee engagement. So let's talk about our managers. Let's talk about the influence that we have on engagement with our managers. First of all, how are we defining manager? So we know as we go through the presentation, you know what we're talking about. For this presentation, a manager is a person who has direct authority over others. So they have direct reports. for the data in this presentation, most of the data is pointing to what I like to call our frontline managers, those that supervise the work of just our individual contributors, although I could argue that there is some similarities with our middle management group. So when we talk about managers, we're talking about those that have direct reports, and we really need them badly now. And we really, really need them to be engaged. Why? As Elizabeth says, the managers account for 70% of an employee's engagement. So by what the manager does, or maybe what the manager doesn't do, 70% of an employee's engagement is dependent on that. And an employee is 59% more likely to be engaged if their managers are. So if we do a good job of engaging our managers, there's a better chance that our employees will be engaged as well. And so you might be wondering, what is the state of our managers and how well are they doing? So if they're accounting for 70% of the engagement, how well are they doing? And our managers actually may be struggling a bit. Only 34% of our managers are considered engaged. 28% of them are reporting feeling burned out, and 49% are currently watching postings. 34% only engaged. That's very close to the employee population in general. And 28% are feeling burned out, 49% are currently watching postings, and 70% indicate that they would take a pay cut right now for a job that has less stress for them. So you might be wondering, well, why this is? Wouldn't you expect your manager engagement to be higher than your employee engagement overall? This is very concerning for organizations. We don't want them burnt out. We don't want them engaged. And you might be wondering, well, why is it? Why is it that they might be feeling the engagement that they are? Well, some of it might have to do with the degree to which we're asking of them now. Now, over half of our leaders that Gallup surveyed indicate that they have way more to do now than they did pre-pandemic. And we're asking a whole lot of them. So as you see in the blue bubbles here, these are the variety of things we're asking managers to take on right now. There are plenty of administrative tasks like planning and budgeting, time card approvals. We're asking them to do the operational work like attending meetings, doing project management. They have to manage their teams, right? Do the performance reviews, do the one-on-one meetings, to be a leader and inspire folks, do the mentoring. They have to look forward, right? Create plans for the future, strategic planning. They also have to coach and train the staff. And most of the time today, our leaders even have projects that they're assigned themselves. And swirling around all of this are all of the things I just discussed. We got COVID policies, we got the looming recession, declining engagement, remote and hybrid work. Are we aware of all of the responsibilities that we're giving to our managers? Are we supporting them in doing so? Are there things that we can do for them to make this weight of all of these things a little bit easier? Absolutely there is, and we should be supporting our managers. They're the key to our engagement. One of the things we can do for our managers to help support them and increase our engagement is to prepare them better. Right? Prepare them better. We typically promote people into manager jobs for two reasons, right? Number one, they've been working with us for a while in an individual contributor role. Here for a certain amount of time, you're eligible to be a manager. The second reason is they've had success in non-manager roles, right? They're really good as an individual contributor. So when we see those things, then we start to give them full responsibility, right? Let's give them a team to lead. But then oftentimes with little or no training, we think that time and job and success in an individual contributor role are enough to be a leader, but is it? Maybe, maybe not, oftentimes not. Gallup says that only 10% of our managers, 10% have come with the natural ability to do it, right? They naturally know how to navigate. That means 90% of us, I'm one of them, by the way, 90% of us need a little help. Gallup took a look at the current state of managers right now in relation to the challenges that we're experiencing in the workplace right now, sort of the post-pandemic, this unique environment that we're working in. And they asked the question, how well did your organization prepare you to lead with all of these interesting factors and unique factors right now? What kind of training was available to you, and what kind of training did you participate in. You'd be surprised by the results. 7%, only, by the way, 7% had received and participated in required training. 19% of the respondents said that there was some optional training that they had opportunities to participate in and participated in. 15% of the respondents had informal advice and tips and guidelines given to them. But the big one, the most shocking of them all, is that 57% of them reported that they received nothing, no formal training, or they're responsible for engagement. They have 70% in their hands. Engagement's been trending downward. They've got the weight of all of the things that we're asking them to do and more since the pandemic. And we haven't done as good of a job preparing them to lead in their organization. This perplexes me often. I spend my time talking with organizations about training, and I often ask, what kinds of training they do and all those types of things. And they're always excited to give me their training matrices and show me all the great training they do and how they have 14, 18, 22 hours on a forklift. They require, 15 hours before someone gets into an accounting system, right? Salespeople, 2-3 weeks of training, learn the product, learn the services, go out for a week before they get access to the customers. Yet managers, we put them in the role and we don't prepare them well. But when we do prepare them, great things happen, right? So for those that are prepared and for those we do spend the time developing, they are 10 to 22% more engaged themselves. They have 8 to 18% higher team engagement themselves, 20 to 28% reduction in turnover, and 20 to 28% higher likelihood of high performance. So it really does make a difference. So I would suggest for those of you on the call, one of your key action items here for today is go back and evaluate how well are you preparing? What's your training look like? What are you doing to support your managers and prepare them for these very important challenges that they have ahead? So, what did we just learn? So yes, managers are the essential element to employee engagement. And I want to say thank you sincerely, all of the folks on the call who are managers. Thank you for taking on this challenge and trying to navigate these challenging times. We all really appreciate you, and I certainly do. And we will, yes, we will support you. We will support you. So what is it that we need to support managers doing? What are the 5 things that lead to high levels of engagement? And so you might be asking too, as I go through these, well, Cheryl, why are these 5? Where did you get these 5 from? Why did you pick these? Well, the 5 that I'm about to describe to you are the 5 things that have contributed the most to our reduction in employee engagement. That is, we haven't been doing them so well. And as a result, we haven't been doing them so well. That's why we're seeing a decrease. Do them better, do more of them, likely to see an increase. And one last thing before we start the 5, nothing I'm about to describe here is rocket science. There probably won't be things on the list where you go, oh, that's something brand new, but rather I want you to pay attention to the urgency and the current state of these, as well as the action items that I might suggest to you as we go forward. So you ready to get started? Let's talk about 5 things. It's what you came for, right? The first one, number 1 for a reason. It's the one that has fallen off the cliff the most. It's the one that we haven't done as well over the last, say, 2 years. It's the number 1 thing that's fallen off the cliff. It's very concerning to me. People don't know what's expected of them at work. They don't know what they're supposed to do. So managers are the answer to engagement when they set clear expectations. Now, I know everybody on this call that's a manager is saying, that's not me for sure. I know that's not me. And I know you're thinking that because I ask that in my classes all the time. Like, how many of you are really good at this? And 90%, 100% raise their hand and say, I'm good at that. But the question is, are you sure about that? Are you sure you're clear about it? Do you really know? Well, let me give you a little something to compare to if I could. So here's the state of this particular element. So 43% of managers believe that they actually are doing really well at helping employees set priorities. We know that 46% of employees, that's over half, less than half. That's less than half of our employees don't know what's expected of them at work. Less than half of employees don't know what they're supposed to be doing on a daily basis. And 22% of employees strongly agree that their manager helps them. So are we good at this? Have we been good at this? I'm not really sure about that. But when we talk about expectations and setting expectations and being clear, we're not just simply talking about the functional, task-oriented kinds of things, right? Well, you need to do 5 of these, you need to get the paper done by the end of the week, things like that. We're also talking about expectations around relational and value-oriented things. How I'm supposed to be behaving, like how we're supposed to treat each other. Am I supposed to have my camera on? Am I not supposed to have my camera on during a meeting, for example? How do we work as a team? How are we dividing the work up, for example? What about dress code? I've heard this over and over again. Are expectations clear about dress code? So when we look at the picture into totality, people are really struggling with knowing what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. So what is it that they need to know more about? What's not happening right now? One thing is we want to make sure that we don't assume that they know all of these things. This is a list of the kinds of things that have been unclear. So they don't know their priorities. They don't know about their workload. They're having questions about remote and hybrid policies and procedures that are ever changing, right? We keep changing it. We're going to do it like this. We're going to do it like that. In some cases, they're seeing it happen over here differently. They're seeing it happen over there differently. So in keeping up with all of the changes and making sure that they're known has been a big challenge. So what do we do about it? What can you do about it? How do you support your managers? Organizations. If you're part of the organization crowd, that is, you're a leader, maybe you're an HR leader, set guidelines, templates, and expectations, and provide training to your managers. Give training and guidance to your managers. Provide consistent direction, consistent templates for them to use. Discuss progress daily, managers. Ensure all team members have documented expectations, documented guidelines about it. Discuss it with them. Ask them if they're clear about things. Ask them what's causing them challenge, and consistently apply policies. One of the biggest problems with expected at work is the policies and procedures are not consistently applied. They're done one way over here, they're done another way over here. And we seem to be living right now, one thing I hear a lot, we're living in the they should know, or I shouldn't have to tell them, or no one had to tell me world. So when I ask a manager, well, do they know they're supposed to have their camera on during a meeting, for example, they'll say, well, they should know we put the cameras on. And I'll say, well, did you tell them? Well, I shouldn't have to tell them, right? Nobody had to tell me. We want to make sure that we're not making assumptions about it. So to clarify expectations, consistency, and don't assume. Number 2, managers are the answer to engagement when they provide positive feedback. This is one of the main reasons people are looking, the 50%, right, that are looking for new work right now. One of the main reasons they're looking, and one of the main reasons they leave organizations. They are not being acknowledged for the work they do. And they need it now really more than ever. Why? We're asking them to do all kinds of things, right? We're asking them to do more. We're asking them to navigate in this challenging time. We're asking them to take on different work. We've had openings for 6 months or a year. We can't fill, labor shortage, great resignation, all of it. And they're taking up the slack, but yet they're not feeling like they're seen. They're not feeling like they're recognized. So to what degree is that happening? 60% of managers believe they're doing a good job at recognizing people. Are they? Do you think employees agree with that? Only 34% of employees say they do. So managers say, yeah, I think I'm doing this, right? I think I am recognizing, but the workforce is saying maybe not so much. The thing that breaks my heart the most with positive feedback, is only 17% of our managers. Remember, we need the managers. They need to be engaged, 70%, all the data points we've said so far. Only 17% of managers feel like they're getting the right amount of recognition. 17%. It's not very many. 22% of non-managers, your individual contributors, strongly agree. So there's an epidemic here of positive feedback. And I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Everybody doesn't need a trophy, Cheryl. Is this everybody gets a certificate? No, it's not. No, it's not at all. It's a psychological need that people have. It's not about handing out trophies. We also know that it has a very critical and important element of employee engagement, because employees are four times more likely to be engaged if they strongly agree that they're getting the feedback they want. So this one becomes super critical. Employees that receive daily feedback from their manager are 3 times more likely to be engaged. So what's not happening? What do employees need? Well, why do they need recognition to begin with? What do they need feedback about? If they don't get feedback, think about it yourself. If you don't get positive feedback, how do you know you're doing a good job? Do you think you're doing a good job today? How do you know that? How would you know if you didn't get the feedback? So this helps employees know, one, are they on the right track? Are they doing a good job? Do you see me? Am I valued? Am I an important part of the organization? Because if we don't tell them, they don't know. If you don't give me feedback, positive feedback, how am I going to know what I need to keep doing or where I need to get better? So how do we fix this? What do we do better? Timely feedback is easy to miss, easy to forget about. Days and weeks go on and we often don't think about it as managers. So organizations, what can you do to support your managers? One, timely training, instruction for them. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's a lot of ways to say it. Some are better than others. There's team, there's individual. There's a lot of ways to look at positive feedback. Managers could benefit sometimes from some guidance in this. And number 2, organizations, what kind of resources do you have for positive feedback? Do you have resources they can use? Are there budgets they can draw upon? Are there awards that they can give? Are there things that they can do that you are going to provide for them? Managers now, what can you do to help increase engagement through positive feedback? Once a week is the guideline. Every employee should receive recognition 1 time a week. If you can't think of one thing in a week's time to acknowledge someone for, thanks for your idea, thanks for contributing to the conversation, thanks for getting that in on time. There's hundreds of ways to do it. You're not close enough. Make sure that the recognition is delivered equally among team members. One of the biggest areas of stress is when recognition is not equal. I see someone getting all the recognition, I'm not getting as much as I need there. And there's a couple of easy ways to incorporate this. I'm a big fan of infusing new things into things you're already doing. So you're already holding meetings, start it with recognition. Do you have town hall meetings, organizational leaders? Start it with recognition. Include it in your one-on-one meetings. Include it in everything in communications. Do you have a digital sign program in your organization, or you do regular update emails, for example? Infuse it there. There's a lot of ways that we can do this by including it in what we already do. It should be balanced also with critical feedback. I've talked to some folks who say, yeah, I'm never recognized, and nobody ever acknowledges my good work. And I say, never. And they say, yeah, all they want to tell me is when I'm doing wrong. But in reality, they are getting some positive feedback, but it's canceling out. So make sure we're balancing it out with the critical feedback, which sometimes is necessary as well, with the positive feedback. I believe this is the fastest, easiest, and most impactful way to increase engagement is this one right here. That's why I spent extra time on this one. Easy to do, incredibly impactful. We just need to be paying attention. Number 3, managers are the answer to engagement when they frequently and intentionally communicate. We do not communicate nearly enough. And the pandemic has nicely put up a bunch of barriers for us to this, right? From remote work to new systems, new ways of doing things. We need to be communicating more. So what's the status of communication? How well are we doing at this? Why is this a concern? 7% Under 10 now, 7% of US workers agree that the communication they receive is accurate and timely for the work they do. Only 28%, less than 1/3, less than the engaged percentage even, of employees agree that their supervisor does a good job of keeping them involved. And only 18% of our workforce agree that the leaders keep them abreast and communicate effectively. So there's some great opportunity. So what is it that, one other data point is employees who have at least one meaningful conversation each week with their manager are nearly 4 times. That's the importance of communication. That's how critical those connections with the manager are. So what is it that they want to know more about? Well, here's a short list. This looks like a long list to you, but it's a very short list. So what do they want to know? They don't know what's going on. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. We've already covered that in number 1. They don't know what's most important. They don't know about the changes. They heard something about the changes, but I don't know all the details about the changes. I don't know what's coming down the pike in the future. And I don't know how things are going to affect me as just a subset. So there's plenty of opportunity to communicate more. And when people are not communicated to, they'll make it up, won't they? In the lack of information, they're going to make it up. So if they don't hear anything from you, can you imagine the kinds of things they start thinking? Gee, nobody's paying attention to me. Nobody's keeping me informed. I must not be valuable. I must not be an important piece of the pie. And it affects the way they work. So what can we do to better influence this and support our managers? Organizations, as you've seen the same bullet on each and every one of these, provide time and resource and training to your managers, how best to communicate, how to conduct a one-on-one meeting, and so forth. Provide tools and templates and guidance and mentoring for your managers. And set expectations for communication across the board. Organizations, make sure the messages are getting down into the organization. I work with organizations and I find sometimes they stop at a certain level, right? The top leadership or communications group sends messages down and they might stop at middle managers and they never make it down. Make sure it does. Check in with the employees and make sure it's done. Managers, you are the key here. You are the gold. The gold here is the one-on-one meeting. And I know this for a fact. I know this for a fact because you just saw the data, 4 times more likely to be engaged if I have a good conversation with my manager once a week. I know for sure that organizations that institute a structured, regular manager one-on-one meeting see an increase in engagement. Why? Because guess what you can talk about in your one-on-one meeting? Expectations. You can communicate all the things we just saw on the list. You can also provide recognition and acknowledgement in your one-on-one meeting. That becomes your gold. Organizations require your managers to do one-on-one meetings. Give them some templates around that. How do we have a good one-on-one meeting? Use lots of methods of communication, but the most important thing is connect daily with every single person. Every manager should communicate with every employee on their team every single day. And if you're remote, do a text, do a text message or an email message, or get on a Zoom call or other media you have. You must connect. But communication isn't just what I share, it's how I do it. So we could benefit from creating more dialogue as well. We don't listen near enough. We don't ask enough questions to create dialogue. So I give you a few little extra tips on the side there for communicating more. Number 4. Managers are the answer to engagement when they encourage growth and development. Encourage growth and development. So this is another main reason. And for our younger folks, younger workers in the workplace right now, this is the number 1 reason why they leave organizations. They don't see a future there. We don't create a future for them. We don't talk to them about their future. We don't have a plan for them. Humans cannot be successful alone. They need help in the organizations to grow. They need help determining plans and navigating their course. Managers that don't initiate conversations with individuals, they have no idea what's available to them. So what's the state of our development, growth and development with our managers. So 37% of managers agree that they do indeed invest in their employees' development. 37 only, not even 50. Why not 70? Why not 80%? Only 37% of managers say, yeah, I do a little bit of that. Why don't they do more of it? We'll talk a little bit about that. But only 25% of employees agree that their manager invests in their development. Only 1/4 of our workforce says that we have some investment. 50% of employees said they have had the opportunity to learn and grow in the last year. Only half. So we're not doing it, right? We're not focused on the development for our team. And 70% of our workforce said they just don't have the skill to become an expert. So there's a great need there. Why do they need development anyway? Why do they need it? What's that all about? Well, they have job challenges. There's things they need to get better at to do better at their work. They're struggling maybe in their work. They have challenges, but there's also a want to develop, right? They have career aspirations. They want to grow within the organization. They want to feel good about what they are. They don't know what the pathways are to development. And this is a conundrum we experience a lot in the world of development, isn't it? That managers believe that employees should come to the table with a full plan of what they want to do. So the manager will ask, where do you see yourself in 3 years or 1 year, or what do you want to do? And they expect the employee to know exactly what the options are and have the plan laid out. On the other hand, there are some employees who believe that the manager should have a full plan just written for them, and all they have to do is come pick it up and they've figured it all out for them. But it doesn't work either of those ways well. It has to be a collaborative approach. Managers have to encourage the development and help them create the development as well. So what can we do to increase engagement by focusing on development? It's education and plans here, really, education and plans. Most managers that I meet can benefit from some education in this area. Most managers that I talk to are unsure about how to have these conversations, are unsure about resources available, or how to determine what growth objectives might be, or maybe how to put plans together, or what their role is in this. So organizations could benefit greatly from giving managers some education in this arena, and as well, sharing what's available. What resources organizations do you have available for growth and development for your teams, for your managers? Do you subscribe to different educational libraries? Is there money in the budget for this? Managers often don't know the answers to those. So it's hard for them to direct development with their teams if they're unsure about that. Things like job posting process and tuition reimbursement programs, all those kinds of things, making sure that those are clear with managers and employees are critical to their understanding about how to develop as well. Managers have the conversation. Have the conversation, ask people, what do they want to get better at? What do they want to do in their future? What kinds of things are they interested in? And together make a plan. And don't ask the question anymore, where do you see yourself in 1, 3, 5, use any number of that you'd like years. Employees don't know what the options are. They have a really hard time answering that question besides, I want to be a manager, they often say, but sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. The last and final today, managers are the answer to engagement when they focus on employee well-being. It's kind of a taboo subject sometimes, right? To talk about struggles and well-being of employees or ourselves. We know also that Americans' positive self-assessment of their mental health has been the lowest now than it has been in 2 decades, I think they say, nearly 20 years. So focusing on well-being, the well-being of our employees is really a critical piece. It's not about being a counselor. It's not about being a psychologist. It's about paying attention, right? Making a connection with our workforce. So here's a lot of data points on here. I'm going to go very quickly, but remember, you have access to this after. One of the most startling that came across the desk about a week or so ago is this one. 60% of employees said the biggest factor influencing their mental health, the biggest factor, is their job, is their experience at work. So why wouldn't we want to make it a good place for them and make them feel well at work? We also know that 24% of workers strongly agree that their employer actually cares about their well-being. 69% say their manager is the biggest impact on their well-being. Workers say they don't talk to their managers about it. Most of them don't. Why? I don't think they're going to care. Maybe not going to do anything about it. We also have 41% of workers say they experience daily worry, 50% daily stress, and 22% say they experience daily sadness. So there's a lot going on here. Burned out employees also are 2.6 times more likely to be looking for another job. So what can we do? What do they need? The biggest causes of well-being concerns at work are the 4 bullets you see here, the first 4. These are things we can influence. Again, it's not about a psychologist. It's not about being a counselor. I hear that from managers all the time. I'm not a counselor, Sherry. I'm not a psychologist. Well, all we have to do if we want people to feel a good sense of well-being at work is treat them fairly at work. Make sure that everybody's treated fairly, that all the policies, we've already talked about this throughout, right? All the policies are instituted consistently throughout the organization. Workload is heavy, it's unmanageable, and nobody's talking to me about it, right? Expectations aren't clear earlier. Communication is unclear. I'm not sure what's going on. No surprise, that was in our bullet list here. And they feel like their manager maybe doesn't support me. Why? Because my manager doesn't communicate with me. I don't hardly see or hear from maybe my manager sometimes. So how can we influence this even better? What can we do to help people? Focus on 1 to 4, right? Pretty simply, the ones we've already discussed today. Share available resources if you have them, if necessary, you know, ERPs and other, EAPs, excuse me, and other things like that can be helpful. But really the key is connection. Get to know employees as people. Offer opportunities to connect as a community. Gather people together. Get them connected so they can make the human connection. Part of our well-being challenge is we're disconnected now because of the way we work. Discuss future opportunities. Really show some care with our employees. Every moment counts. You can do this. You can increase engagement in your organization and you can support managers at the same time. So here's your quick checklist of things that you can start right now today after this call. Focus on your engagement. Be ahead of the curve. Check in with your managers. Check in with them. How are they doing? Are they like the data we saw here? Are yours trending much better? Maybe they are. Are they about the same? Or are they worse? Review your current manager training and guidance and tools and support that you have. Review it. Pull it back out. Take a look at it. Adjust it as necessary. Consider measuring it. Engagement surveys that I participate with measure all 5 of these. Consider taking a look at these 5. How well are you doing? Where are your gaps? Do you have any? And then, of course, review your internal policies and procedures to support the 1 to 5 that we covered here and make a plan. Do not wait. Don't say, oh, we'll do that next. No, right now. You can make a difference today. And you know how? Start connecting with people every day. Connect with your managers daily. Start the conversation now. And if you want help, if you need some help, you want some guidance, you want to throw some things around, contact us. I'm happy to talk with any of you. I love talking about the topic clearly. I love talking about this. Be happy to brainstorm things, take a look at something with you. We can help you take a look at the measurements and engagement survey. And we can help evaluate your management development program and maybe what might be missing or maybe what to focus on. We can even take a look at your HR department if you'd like. We do HR assessments, and I'm happy to connect with any of you at any time and talk about what's happening in your organization and the world of work. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for joining. Such a fun morning today. I appreciate you taking a look at the data, and I wish good luck to you as you look to support your manager. Please do so. We need them. We appreciate them. Please take some time to better support your manager or continue to support your manager. Elizabeth, back to you.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. So much good information and ideas shared today, and hopefully we inspired our audience. And thank you to all of our participants who joined us today. Here are the credits if you need HRCI or SHRM recertification credits. We're super excited that Rehmann has just been approved to be a certified provider for both of these accreditations. And so look for more in the future from us. We'll be following up via email with the link to today's recording and how you can contact Cheryl for a free consultation to learn more about how Rehmann can help you with your training and engagement initiatives. So please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you, everyone. We wish you a wonderful day.